Hi, this is Erika Casab from A Small Robot Studio. In today's video, I'll show you my workflow to design, sculpt, and pose a character in Nomad Sculpt. Before actually opening Nomad, I'd like to have an idea of what my character is gonna look like, even if it's a simple sketch like this one. When designing cartoon characters, you gotta make sure that you have very simple shapes that make it up. As simple as you can go. Triangles, squares, circles that will eventually translate into boxes, cones, and spheres. When putting these shapes together, you want to organize them in 3 sizes: small, medium, and big. Follow this rule for every section of your character. This is known as the snowman principle. This is a good way to avoid evenness and arrive to a more interesting design. I'm gonna use this image as a reference inside Nomad, so I'm gonna get rid of the background and save it as a PNG. Here in Nomad, in a new project, I'm gonna open the background menu and I'm gonna tap on reference image, and here I'm gonna select the image that I just saved. I'm gonna bring the overlay value up so I can see through my image. You can also lower the alpha to make the image slightly transparent. These other controllers will let you center the image anywhere you want. Now I'm gonna get rid of this sphere by going into the scene menu and tapping on the rubbish bin. Most of my character is created by rounded boxes. So naturally I'm gonna choose the box primitive. I'm gonna turn on the wireframe here at the bottom, and inside the topology menu up here I'm gonna focus where it says parameter and topology. When I take this number up, the corners start to round, and when I take this number down, the roundness gets bigger. So by playing with these 2 numbers, I can get to a very soft result while still having a cube. If you've seen any of my tutorials, you will know that I like to start with quite low topology because this is easier to manipulate. I think this works, so I'm gonna make sure right now, because I want to line it up with the reference, that perspective is not activated. And with the gizmo tool, I'm gonna line it up. I'll have to make this reference image smaller as the interface is blocking my controllers. Now that the head is roughly where we want it, I'm gonna open the camera menu up here and tap on Add View. Now, even if I move my camera around, zoom in or zoom out, whenever I come back here and tap on this view that I saved, it's gonna go back exactly where I was. A great tool to line up things to your reference. Let's validate this tool. I'm gonna choose the selection mask with lasso, and I'm gonna select the top half of this. In the top right, that is my mask menu. Here you will find the most important actions. In this case, I'm gonna invert and I'm gonna blur a couple times. Select this gizmo and scale down. This looks pretty good, so we can go back to the mask menu and clear that mask. I'll continue using this same blocking technique for the rest of the character. Instead of starting with a box, this time I'm gonna choose a cylinder. Let's make this smaller for the body. Once again, I'm gonna get some nice rounded results. For my cylinders on the top, I have the option of using the radius controllers. I'm gonna tap them, which will show me these yellow dots, which now I can drag to have a different size for the origin and end. If you have very similar shapes, with your gizmo selected, you can tap on the left where it says clone and use this base for any other part. Like in this case, I'll use it for the ears. In this same top menu, I can select on mirror and I will get the mirrored copy. When you already have several pieces together, it's worth using some sculpting tools like Smooth, Move, or Clay to achieve more complex shapes. Since this is a very simple character, I'm only doing subtle modifications. As for the limbs, we can use the very same technique, but it's gonna be much better for posing later to start with the tube tool. Tap on your tube, select Path as a creation method, and tap twice on the background, not on your model. After that, tap on the green dot, and we'll have the base for our leg. Just like we did before, you can tap on mirror so you can see both sides of the legs. We're also gonna select radius so we can have a different size for the start and end since these legs are tapered. Now make sure that you do not validate yes, because if we validate, we're gonna lose this point that will let me modify the shape. While if I keep it like this, I can at any point tap in between those points to create a new one and move this around. What if my character is flexing its knees? I will not explain the blocking of every single piece because the process is the exact same, and honestly the video is gonna get really boring. Since I use simple shapes for my design, choosing primitives is way easier. Cylinders, boxes, tubes, it doesn't really matter. Pick the one that suits. Round the corners if that suits the design. If needed, make slight modifications after validating by masking and transforming with the gizmo, or, of course, use any of the sculpting tools. Don't you worry if there is a process or some technique that I haven't talked about. I'll make sure to make a pause and show you the steps I follow. For instance, in the shoes. The shapes are too complex to achieve it with only one primitive, but I can break it down into several, and then I'm gonna merge them. I'll make the heel and voile with a sphere, but I need a flat bottom, so I'm gonna choose the project tool, set to line, and here in the tool menu, at the very bottom, I'm gonna make sure that this is set all the way up to 90 degrees. This is gonna create vertical or horizontal lines, and anything that falls within that area is gonna be squashed up. It's gonna be flattened down. As for the rest of the steps, I'm using once again a combination of the mask and gizmo tool. There are many ways to achieve the same result. My main objective with this video is to show you a flexible workflow that you can adapt to your own designs. Throughout this process, there will be times in which I will do a couple tests trying different techniques. I do encourage you to experiment. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You don't see mine because I edit them out of the video. But there might be things that will not work for this specific sculpt, and yet you might be able to use it for another one. I'm aware that at the moment this is very polygonal looking, but we will smooth out the surfaces. Simply select the object that you want to smooth. Let's go into the topology menu. On the very first section, multi-resolution and subdivide. If we tap down on wireframe, you will see the difference if I move between the lower and the highest levels. Before I carry on, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the group of amazing people that support the channel via Patreon. Thank you so much. For only $5 a month, you too can gain access to a growing library of 3D assets, including this model and many more. Learn more at patreon.com/smallrobotstudio, or have a look at our Gumroad store to buy individual assets. Let's get back to the video. And now that we have blocked in the main primitives, I'm gonna move the image to the side, where I can still look at it, but it's not really in the way of my sculpt. I am also gonna make sure that I get out of perspective view. This icon should be shaded orange. I will continue refining the shapes every time with more detail. At this point, I'm trying to figure out what the side view looks like. I am exploring what looks best. In my sketch, I did not take time to figure this out, so I have to do it at some point while I'm sculpting. The best advice I can give you at this stage is to keep shapes clean. You don't really need to add lots of resolution, lots of polygons. It's always easier to modify less points than millions of them. The main body is pretty much completed. So I'm just gonna grab that eye Then I'm gonna open the symmetry menu and tap on right to left to create the duplicate on the other side. I think it's time to paint a temporary pupil. This is simply a landmark that helps me judge if the design is going in the right direction. So, with the paint tool and a dark color, I'll paint it. Seriously, don't worry about it being perfect, this is just temporary. Most of the missing shapes are easily created with the tube tool. To make these straps look like they're going around the shoulders, it's very important that you activate here on the top snap, so every time that I move a point, it's gonna stick to the surface. I'm also gonna go to the topology menu, and at the very bottom, I'm gonna increase this number snap offset. You might notice that at the moment it's snapping at the very middle of this tube, but by changing this to 1, now it's snapping to the outer edge of my tube. Once again, I'm gonna pick up the pace with a few stops with techniques I have not covered. The tail and whiskers are simple tubes with rounded corners using the same technique I showed you at the beginning to create the head shape. When posing the whiskers, I'm trying to make them point in different directions. I don't want them to be symmetrical, because my character is meant to have a messy personality. As for the lunchbox, once again, a box with rounded corners, but this time I'm gonna go into the materials menu here on the top, and I'm gonna choose additive and lower this opacity. I'm gonna create a clone of this shape and make it slightly bigger. For this clone, I want it to be on a regular opaque material. Let's validate this. Let's go into a perfect front view with no perspective. I'm gonna choose trim with rectangle as the creation mode. Make sure that symmetry is activated. And in this top menu, that it is set to local. This is gonna get rid of the area shaded in white, thus creating a window to the inside. I'm gonna do the same from a side view. Don't let this fish fool you. There is nothing complex about it. Most of it is made of tubes. This includes the body, the fins, the lips. The most exciting thing I did for the fins was using the gizmo to squash them on one side. The handle of the lunchbox can be created with a simple torus, this donut-like primitive, for which if you select this pink dot, you can create only a portion of it. Now that I have my pieces, I'm gonna start merging it together in groups. The head, ears, eyes, mouth and whiskers are gonna move together as a unit, so I'll merge them into one object. First thing that you wanna make sure is that all the surfaces are smooth. So select your object, go into the topology menu, add subdivision levels, delete the lower levels, do this exact same process for all the other objects, make sure that everything looks smooth. Now select everything you want to merge. The fastest way to do this is to hold down smooth and tap on the geometries that you are selecting together. You can also do this manually on the scene menu. Let's scroll down to where it says voxel merge and tap on it. I'm gonna hide the painting for a second so it's not in the way, and I'm gonna revise that the merging worked. Doesn't necessarily look very nice here at the whiskers. I might need to add resolution. That's alright. Undo. Same area, but I'm gonna increase this number. I'm in general very happy with this result. It doesn't seem like I need to fix anything. I'm still gonna go around it with my smooth tool with very low intensity. Once again, I'm gonna repeat the same stages to merge the other main groups. But I gotta make sure that the arms, body, legs and tail are independent for posing, which is exactly the next step that I'm gonna show you. This final stage takes time. However, it is as simple as selecting groups of things and moving them around with the gizmo. By the way, make sure to save a copy before you commit to the pose. It's important to have a backup in case you don't like your progress. Now as for the arms and legs, I can put them in any pose I want, though it's gonna be weird if they are symmetrical. So I'm gonna get rid of that mirror. I'm gonna select that arm with my gizmo. I am going to tap on clone, activate snap, set it to 90 degrees. Then with my gizmo, I can move this copy, rotate it exactly 90 degrees, another 90 degrees, and I can put it on the other side of the body. This process involves a lot of tweaking. You'll spend way less time if you have a reference to follow. I don't have them on my screen, but I did collect a few photos. Even if the pose is not in motion, we want a natural dynamic pose. Revise the pose from every single angle. Make it look good from the front, side, back, even from the top. If you are unsure if the pose is working, pick a main point of view where you would like to render this from. Then open the shading menu and choose Unlit. This will show your model only as a silhouette. Deactivate any paint or outlines if you use them like me. You'll find them inside the display menu. And if you understand the pose of your character like this, you're in the right direction. If it's not quite there yet, then there's still some work to do. I think that most of the work that I need to do is on the shoulder area. The video doesn't show it, but I easily spent at least another 45 minutes tweaking the pose. It's a good time to put on something to watch in the background and make the process more enjoyable. There's no need to rush it. If you are truly unsure if things are not working, take a break. Maybe come back to it in the next day. You'll have a fresher perspective and you'll make better decisions. Just like before, try to keep this stage as clean as possible. The better we can make it look, the least we will need to clean later. There might be areas, maybe like the arms or the legs, that will connect a bit weirdly, but that is fine. We can clean this up afterwards. To fix these legs, I am finally going to validate them, and I'm gonna use the trim tool, set to lasso, and I'm gonna get rid of anything that I don't need. Whatever is in the white area is gonna disappear. That covers pretty much it. Here's what the final design looks like. I hope you find this video useful. I'm always excited to see what you create. Please feel free to tag me if you decide to share your creations in social media. Alright, I'll see you soon in a new video. Happy sculpting! That's it for this tutorial. If you find it useful, make sure that you leave a like so other people can find it. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, as we are bringing out CG and illustration tutorials every week. Become a patron and access tutorial assets, bonus content, a private Discord, and more by clicking in the link below.